Hello, dear authors and invited guests. Welcome to the technical session 3B. Good morning to one and all present here. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 6th International Conference on ICT for Sustainable Development through Zoom on behalf of ICT 4SD 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation. We are thankful to everyone present on this platform to go along with us digitally for the conference in these unpredictable circumstances of COVID-19 and making this conference more productive. Also, we wish everyone and their families a very protected time, and we all will together pass this soon. We hope you will enjoy the last day of the knowledgeable and the interactive sessions. So just before we get started, I would like to introduce you all to the chair of this session, Dr. Rajan Patel. Dr. Rajan is an associate professor at Gandhinagar Institute of Technology, Ahmedabad, India, and head at CEIT and PG in charge. He has more than 16 years of teaching experience in the field of computer science and engineering. He has more than 51 publications in national and international journals and conferences. He presented 17 articles in national and international conferences, including IEEE, Science Direct, Springer, and Elsevier. Thank you so much, sir, chairing this session. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Dr. Rajan. Okay. My voice is audible. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Thank you so much. Okay, no worries. So I would like to start with the papers. Also, there is a special note for presenters. Presenters would be given 8 minutes for presentation and 2 minutes for Q&A. On 7 minutes, I will raise a gentle reminder. Also, I request other participants to be muted while the presentation is going on. Thank you so much. So I would like to start with the papers, and our first presentation is Asha Durafe, and the paper title is Securing the Patient's Medical Image.
Shall I start, ma'am?
Yes, you can. You can share your screen as well.
My screen is visible, right?
Yes.
Good morning, one and all present here. Myself, Asha Durafe, and I'm presenting the paper on securing the COVID patients' medical records using encrypted image steganography. So this is the quick overview for today's presentation. Now we all know that during the coronavirus disease 2019, that is COVID-19 outbreak, the need of ensuring and getting information turns out to be significantly more fundamental while it is sent through the correspondence to medical organizations. This prerequisite turns out to be significantly more articulated if the information we are discussing is the clinical data of a patient. These medical images incorporate X-ray beams, CT outputs of the chest of the influential, that is the infected person. This isn't just for COVID-19, but it can be ruled out for any type of medical informatics, like medical images like CT, MRI, X-ray, or any kind of medical informatics data. This is the place where cryptography and steganography assume a significant part. Now, which are the main frontiers in the medical image hiding paradigm? So those are the image encryption, digital watermarking schemes, and the image steganography. Now here, the proposed method along with these lines is utilizing asymmetric encryption because of its undeniable benefits. So here we are using RSA encryption, and to add another layer of security against the attackers, the steganography techniques with encryption are preferably implemented instead of using pure steganography without encryption. So here we have two types of image hiding paradigms, that is cryptography and steganography. So here cryptography means the hidden, where something is hidden inside, but we can make out that something is suspicious. But in steganography, entirely the secret data is hidden inside a cover. So that is the beauty of this steganography. Now the watermarking and steganography, if we compare, the steganography intruder cannot detect a message. Primarily, it is a 1:1 communication, whereas watermarking, the intruder can remove or replace the message, and it is primarily a 1:many communication. And what are the contributions of the work presented in this manuscript? The proposed method is implemented with RSA encryption as the first layer of security. Furthermore, the 1 LSB, 2 LSB, and 4 LSB, that is least significant bit methods of steganography, are used along with unique formula-driven fractal images, which are used as cover images as the second layer of security. The Steganalysis tools SegSecret and StegExpose are used to demonstrate the efficiency of the algorithm. The statistical histogram analysis is also carried out to evaluate the spatial difference in the cover image and the step image. Along with that, the machine learning based analysis using the exception tool is also worked out. Now the literature survey which we did along with these lines is listed over here. So there are many researchers who have put efforts to survey the methods of image hiding techniques using steganography for COVID-19 medical informatics data. Now, the techniques which we have used are RSA algorithms, then the generation of fractal images with Mandelbrot's fractals. It was done using Ultra Fractal 6 software tool, and these are the unique formula-driven fractal images which are used as cover images. So they can be generated only if the seed of the fractal formula is known to the receiver. So these are the unique fractal images which are used as cover images, inside which the medical informatics data, that are the X-ray or the CT scan images of the influenced person, can be hidden inside. Then we have used the least significant bit spatial embedding type of technique. Then we did Steganalysis using different statistical as well as machine learning based tools. Okay, so these are the methods used. Now talking about the block diagram of the proposed method. First of all, the input secret image is encrypted using RSA encryption, and the fractal image, which is a unique formula driven image which is generated using ultra fractal tool, they are embedded together to calculate the stego image. So here we calculate the stego percentage. This stego image, that is the secret image inside the cover image, is hidden inside the cover image, and then it is inserted as LSBs. Then the stego image is created. Here at the receiving side, again the decryption is done using the private key with the RSA decryption method. Okay, and then the image can be extracted. So these are the lung images which are used from the COVID X-ray dataset, which is the official dataset given for the COVID influenced patients. And these are the fractal cover images as shown in this diagram. So there are 24 stego images created such this. So the fractal images are used as the cover images, inside which the lung images, these are the X-ray images which are used as secret images, are hidden inside. So the experimental results show that, which was experimented using MATLAB software. So here we have the figure 4, which is representing the payload capacity for single LSB method and 4 LSB method using LUNG-5 as the secret image. So we can see that the stego image, which is created using 64% byte used for the left hand side image, which is at 1 LSB, and the right hand side image is for 4 LSB, that is 16% bytes are used. Along with these lines, the experiment
sorry
results.
to interrupt. I'm
Yes,
sorry to
ma'am.
interrupt, ma'am, but one last minute left for your presentation.
Okay. So these are the experimental results which are showing that the 1 LSB method has got the highest imperceptibility but the low payload capacity, whereas 4 LSB method has got high payload capacity but low robustness. So here the statistical analysis which we carried out using the tools is listed. Then the machine learning based analysis is showing that J48 classifier has given the highest percentage of accuracy, but it was not able to predict the results of 24 stego images which were created by the proposed method. A comparative analysis is also carried out, which shows that the proposed method has got the highest PSNR, MSE, highest NCC, and highest SSIM, that is structural similarity. So I can conclude that a novel technique for hiding COVID-19 patients' secret images like CT scan, X-ray, and other imaging modalities is developed using the proposed method. The stick hiding capability of the proposed method is assessed by statistical as well as artificial intelligence-based stagnalysis tools, and the obtained results validate the resistance of competency against the possible security threats. So these are the references which we have used. Thank you all.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, you just go to your proposed work. Proposed work in the sense in diagram.
Yes, sir.
So ultimately, our goal is what? To protect the medical image, right?
Yes, sir.
So to provide the protections of our medical image, what you are using the one of the encryption algorithm, that is RSA,
Yes, sir.
right? So may I know what is the reason behind to choose this RSA encryption algorithm?
Yes, sir. This is specifically asymmetric encryption technique where key distribution is not a major problem. So this is the most
Okay, fine.
reliable method which is there as compared to symmetric, where in symmetric we have key distribution problems.
Agree, ma'am. But what with the what is the image size?
So the image size here I have kept different sizes. I can show
Okay.
you here.
Approximate. Okay, that is a size. So can I? That is in terms of MB.
Sir?
MB size image size.
Yes, sir. MB, it is, these are the sizes in terms of pixels, and in MBs, I have the various sizes like from 300 MBs to 25 MBs. Various
Okay,
sizes I
fine.
have tested.
So here I would like to give one comments.
Yes.
You know, the symmetric ciphers are more efficient in terms of computational power compared
Yeah.
to the asymmetric ciphers.
Yes, sir.
And here you choose the asymmetric ciphers. The reason is what key we don't have a question, that is, you know, how to distribute the secret shared key,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yeah.
But if you compare your work, you know, with symmetric versus asymmetric, right? Suppose instead of RSA, you choose the one of the symmetric, say DES, and
Okay.
compare it.
Yeah.
So according to me, in DES encryption algorithm, that will take a less computational power as compared to the RSA, because you know the RSA required, you know, it's a kind of the
Yes, sir. It requires some more time.
more computation power. For
Yeah.
example, you just assume the two prime numbers, you know, large prime numbers, right?
Yeah.
And we have to calculate the raise to something. So obviously, in that case, the entire work will be failed. And
Yes.
second reason I want to know why you choose this technography. You already protecting your data with the help of RSA.
Yes, sir. So actually the goal of steganography is to remove the suspicion from the mind of intruder that something is hidden inside. So that suspicion we can easily rule out using steganography. Whereas in encryption, we have some encrypted thing, and that gives the suspicion.
That's true. According to Kirchhoff's assumptions, what he said, every intruders or say, you know, attackers have access over the bulk of ciphertext, right? Simply they don't know the key as well as your plain text.
Yes, sir.
But they know the way of working functionality of algorithm, as well as they have also access over the bulk of ciphertext.
Yes, sir.
Right? Second disadvantage of your proposed work is what? You are using this steganography, right?
Yeah.
So steganography, that means that takes, you are hiding something inside covered image or say in covered thing.
Yeah.
Right? So to hide 1 MB data, for example, to hide 1 MB data, we need 600 MB of image size. Right? So in that case, it takes, more
Payload.
memory space, and that can store, that can hide the stored size of data low.
So here the fractal images which I have used. So here the beauty of these images is they are of low size. The size is very small as compared to the other sizes. So that is why I have used these fractal images so that to
Okay.
reduce the
So
overall.
where
burden.
is the covered image? Where is your covered image?
So
These are
these
the
the
covered
fractal
image.
images
Fine.
are the cover images. Yes. Sir.
Okay, so you are hiding this image inside this fractal one to any one of these, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you hide these things after performing the encryption operation,
Yes, sir.
right?
So first of all, we have to create two-layer security. So for first layer, I'm using encryption, and then for the second layer, I'm using this steganography basically.
So ultimately, that will be increase the cost of your proposed system.
Cost in terms of time, if I compare, so
Yes,
it
power
is
consumptions, memory space,
okay.
right? That will be a major two parameters. Because you are using the RSA encryption algorithm.
Yes, sir.
Right. Second one, you are hiding your encrypted image over the covered image.
Okay.
Right. So that will also occupy. See, you need to hide the image of 1 MB. You need 600 MB of your factor image.
No, sir. That is what I'm telling. These fractal.
Which techniques you are using to hide? To apply this technography.
Sir, LSB, least significant.
Least significant bits, na? So you just think about that. There are 1 8 byte of data.
Yes.
Around the 1 8 byte of data, you can hide only a single bit.
Yes, sir.
Right. So that might be a difficult things. You hide one hide that, okay, fine. And what about the in terms of noisy data or image? Once you transfer your image,
Yes, sir.
right? One of the LSB bits might be changed. Then what happens?
Yes, sir. So
how
for
will you
that,
recover your data?
yes, sir.
Right. Okay, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And our next presentation is from Mr. Soumyadip Chatterjee, and the paper title is Design and Implementation of Laptop Tracking System Based on Cloud Computing and IoT.
Hello everyone, my name is Soumyadip Chatterjee. Let me share my screen. Please let me know if my screen is visible and
Yes, it is.
is my voice audible enough?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So hello, good morning everyone. My name is Soumyadip Chatterjee. I am working as a software professional in Edifixio India Private Limited. Today I am going to present my paper named Design and Implementation of Laptop Tracking System based on Cloud Computing and IoT, paper ID 236. Today in this presentation, I will be covering to present my synthesis of laptop tracking and alerting system using cloud serverless architecture and IoT. In simple terms, we can define laptop as computer which is portable and suitable to use, especially while traveling. In the IT industry, sometimes employees get a desktop computer with a definite desk or a laptop which makes to complete their task in the dwelling place. Unlike desktop computers, laptops are hard to keep secure and safe as it's easily mobile and considerable. Due to COVID-19 global pandemic, all organizations migrated to work from home model, and every organization tries to maintain a strict IT policy inside their premises. But when the work from home got implemented, almost every laptop got vulnerable to the issues like laptops performing unethical tasks as they are using their own private network. IT security admin team of some organization finds it difficult to execute their monitoring protocol in order to follow their IT policies. The main objective behind the synthesis of the system is to scan multiple laptops at the same time without any workflow interruption. It is an automated system which can be run as a single time run, periodical run, or continuous monitoring mode. The system is mainly developed for preventing the performing malicious activities in the office laptop during work from home. This automated data logging system follows the strong data encryption policy, so all the data gets transferred securely. The system is designed in such a way that in order to run, no dependencies are required. It will set up its own prerequisites based on the OS. The whole operation takes place in less than 5 minutes. Finally, the IT security admin team or the monitoring team can do the analysis of the recorded information using GUI mode provided by AWS or CLI mode. All the data can be saved into the local system into multiple readable formats. So let me explain my proposed system a bit briefly. The system is mainly the communication between two laptops, and the medium of operation takes place through cloud computing and IoT. The application is designed in a serverless architecture model where an automated script plays the main key role in fetching the data from host laptop into the AWS cloud. The script sets up the prerequisite and processes the data transfer. All the data of the laptop are mainly carried away in 5 different stages into the cloud with a negligible gap in between. The whole large chunk of data is evenly distributed into the serverless model, which stores its data in multiple DynamoDB and IoT stacks. In the 5 stages of data transfer, in this following way, the data will get transferred. First, all the hardware and software related information will be sent, followed by all the application installed with its details, and all the details of the current application running. Then the last 1000 browsing history details, and the last and foremost the current location of the IP. Every time the script is executed, a unique user is created if the user doesn't exist. The unique ID is generated every day with respect to the user if the script is running on daily basis. All the data will be processed by AWS API Gateway and AWS Lambda, and will be stored in the segregated way in the DynamoDB and AWS IT. AWS SQS will auto trigger an email if the IP located of the desired out of the desired perimeter. IT will be sent with all its location details. All the data will be available in the AWS console. Even you can download it in your local in JSON and CSV format. So basically, I have divided the whole system into 3 parts. This component one. This component is basically indicate the data flow from host laptop into the cloud. The whole application is running on by multiple automated scripts. It will first set up all the prerequisite requests on its own, then it will trigger a Python script to fetch the data from the host laptop. As I've already mentioned about the types of data are fetched from the laptop, now let me explain the data, stages of data in stage 1, irrespective of the stages. All the hardware related information is transferred in stage 1. In this segregation, all the data are sent in JSON structure. In this stage, laptop system information, boot time information, CPU information, memory information, disk, network information, GPU information, all are transported into AWS DynamoDB. In stage 2, all the details of the currently installed application are transferred into AWS DynamoDB, which includes application's name, version name, install date, install location, and publication. And it's also sent in a JSON structure. In stage 3, the running application, the application which are running into that particular system are transferred into the AWS DynamoDB, which includes its name and the particular PID number. In this segregation also, every data is actually pretty much same like the JSON structure only I am sending. In stage 4, latest 1000 browsing details are transferred into AWS DynamoDB, which include URL, website name, date time of the visit. The tracking system is capable of extracting data from browser like Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Opera, and its OS independent process. The range of browsing history can be altered up and down. In this segregation, all the data are sent in JSON structure, and in stage 5, the laptop location is traced and its data is reflected into AWS IoT core. The data includes the laptop name, user public IP address, private IP already got transferred in stage 1 under network information, connected broadband name, current living city, state, country, postal code, latitude, longitude, time zone, everything. So if the location is not matched with the desired one, then the IT security team immediately gets an alerting email with all its results after completing sharing all the data of the host laptop. All the traces of its execution and all the executed files are removed from the host laptop using its auto deletion process. So absolutely there will be no trace. All operation generally take place in less than 5 minutes. So now the component.
Sorry to interrupt you, but one last minute left for presentation.
Yeah. In this component, I will explain all the flow occurring inside the AWS serverless architecture. Every stage follows a strong data encryption policy while sending data. In every stage, all the data are converted into an encrypted token, which are sent into the Amazon API gateway. Every time Amazon API gateway receives a request, it verifies every token using custom authorization in 3 steps. The steps include decoding the token using secret key and special algorithm, verify the header of the token, signature validation. If any steps fail to verify, which indicates some middleman attack, that specified request is get blocked by the custom authorizer and won't let access the Lambda code if the request is valid. If the request is valid, API gateway will trigger the AWS Lambda code, which is a serverless compute service. Let's run the code without provisioning or managing server. AWS Lambda compute every request based on the request, decides the endpoint. For example, first 4 stages of data sharing, Lambda is responsible for computing data and storing them into DynamoDB, whereas the last stage of data, where location is transferred, is Lambda perform all necessary computations, followed by the storing all those data into AWS IoT Core, and AWS IoT Core uniquely integrated with the AWS SQS service using IoT Rules Engine. IoT Rules Engine is responsible for checking the reported data with the desired data in the IoT Core shadow. If anything is not met, it will immediately trigger the SQL service, and it will be sent in an email. So the last component is basically the simple one. This is the last and final component of the whole application. After data collection, security admin team can check their system data in 2 ways, in using GUI mode and CLI mode. Using GUI mode, they can access the data within AWS console. For CLI mode, there is a script to extract the data from the cloud. Security admin team just need to execute the script in the system, and followed by that, they can all the command prompt console. They can see all the data in their command prompt console after selecting the user ID. Auto download feature is also enabled. Therefore, all the data when the security team is currently watching on the screen is already downloaded in JSON and CSV format inside the unique name folder based on the user ID. So this is the image of the data, which is the final endpoint of for the first 4 stages of sending data. There are total 5 NoSQL database. Among 4, they are dedicated for storing the data, which I mentioned about. But one database is responsible for all the IoT connectivity details of the user, along with its creation time. The data includes ARN, certificate ID, certificate string, private key, etc. If the security team wants to access the data using GI mode, then this way AWS DynamoDB console is possible. And if the network admin team wants to access the location details within GI mode, then they can access it.
Sorry to interrupt, but you already have exceeded the time limit, so I request you to continue.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So basically, here in this way, in the GUI mode, IoT Core, the location details is also we can see the location details here. And this is the email portion, and this is how it's getting downloaded in the CLI mode. So this is how it's displayed in the console, whether it's IoT or the DynamoDB portion, everything is shown in the console like this. And this is how the details are actually downloaded in the local system in the JSON and Excel format. To conclude, the application is actually built to protect the cyber ethics and corporate IT policies. I have maintained the cyber ethics throughout the application in a proper and safer way. Today's work from home implementation in your organization infrastructure admin team, not only they can easily track their system usage, but also they perform auditing without interruption or delaying any employee delivery system. Sorry, delivery time. The application can be enhanced into such a level that it can be monitoring your keypad event, accessing the webcam to get the biometric details, extracting of username and password from the browsing details, etc. But following server ethics, nothing as such is implemented. The application is compact, easy to use, follows strong data encryption policies, efficient, and most importantly, it runs serverless architecture, which is totally managed by AWS. So there is almost negligible chance of any downtime, and the billing price is almost affordable one compared to other laptop tracking implementation, especially while using other cloud services. So that's it from my side. Thank you. Please shoot any questions.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Sir, I'd like to ask one question. What you are doing, you are just uploading your data, from desktop or say from laptop to the AWS. I mean, in a cloud, right? So,
yes.
What about the security concern?
Okay, sir. For the security concern, like, sir, for which portion you want me to during the transfer from the laptop to the AWS?
Yes, yes. At the time of transmission, I mean, once you
Yes.
send your data to the, I mean, once you upload your data on cloud, nah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got it.
So what
Uh,
means we are using the public network, nah?
um, well, yes, sir. Definitely, we are using public network, but yeah, I can
Hey,
explain
why I'm
how.
asking because here you propose the things. That's why I want to know. Okay,
Mhm.
is there any kind of VPN? I mean, you under
Well,
your VPN you are uploading the
no,
data
no,
to
no,
the
sir.
cloud.
Sir, VPN will be a totally different concept, and although I have a solution for bypassing the VPN one, but that's
And
totally not
second question,
ethical
no,
one.
that's okay, fine. But the second
Yeah.
concern is what? Key, see, the such kind of the facility already available na, in AWS or in Google Cloud or any clouds.
Yes, sir.
So what is the novelty in your work?
Well, sir, the novelty in my work is that currently all the tracking system, sir, now none of them has exactly integrated solely with the GCP or the Azure or anything like AWS. Now you can ask me like why AWS, but
Like,
uh,
but do you have any proof in terms of justifications from research papers?
well, sir, actually, rather than research paper, I searched for a commercialized product. So there I saw a few of the product which are quietly available in the market. So two things I've gone through. One is that the backend architecture, and the second thing is that the uh, what am I supposed to, this backend architecture, and another was is that the features. Yeah, the features what they are providing is not exactly the adequate one. Like something or the some other things are always having a loophole. So I haven't found anything like you can't sorry, you can't give me any product like having all this feature in all this thing in a cumulative way. I have always found something or some other thing is always missing, and the main important thing is they are I have always felt that this kind of system should be always enhanced with the new technology, with the new type of integration should always be made. But yes, sir, I can answer about that question. That what is the security I am following during the transmission? So, so
And
yes,
the last question is why we need such kind of this the things you implemented.
sir, didn't get it.
See, suppose I want to upload my data on AWS.
Yeah,
So simply
yes,
what
sir.
I do, I'll open the panel of AWS right through
Mm-hmm.
browser,
Mm-hmm.
right, or say through any applications, and simply I'll upload it,
Okay.
right. So what are the in terms of features, the things are different from your end and the existing
Well, sir, first of all, uploading into AWS is not so much direct like
Oh,
drag.
okay. It means you are only targeting to the AWS, right? I mean, only one of the AWS cloud.
Yeah, yes, sir. I can
Okay,
eventually
fine.
integrate with GCP or Azure or anything, but for the timing, I've used all the AWS cloud services.
Okay, and just go to your list of references.
List.
References.
Uh,
Reference.
I think, sir, I forgot to include that in my
You
slide.
should include it because it is a kind of the research paper, right?
Yes,
It
sorry,
must
I
be
think
there. No, no.
sir, if you want, I can open my PDF where I'm.
It's okay, fine,
Yeah.
right? So ultimately, whatever we are doing, whatever we are representing, right? We are just citing them, so we just acknowledge and we have to include that list of references. Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Soumyadip. Also, I request you all of you to highlight the important points because everyone is given the particular and limited time. So I request to conclude and highlight in the given time. Thank you so much. And now presenting our next presentation, who is the same, Mr. Soumyadip Chatterjee, and the paper title is Design and Implementation of Women Security System based on GSM and GPS Technology.
Okay.
Hello.
Um,
Yes, You can start your
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah. Just I don't know, like something Zoom is creating a problem. Just give me a second.
If you are facing any issues, so we can move to the next presentation. Until then, please be ready with your presentation. So our next presenter is Ms. Saundarya S, and the paper title is VLSI Design Flow Using Vinyas Design Board.
Good morning. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. Please go ahead.
It's not an exaggeration that coding is the DNA of the digital world. Every phone app, every appliance, every device requires coding. Good morning. I'm Soundarya S. from the Department of ECE, BNMIT, Bangalore. Speaking about my co-authors, it's Shubham Raj from the Department of ECE, BNMIT from Bangalore. And we were guided under Dr. Veena S. Chakravarti ma'am, who is the research head at our institute. Our paper is titled as VLSI Design Flow using Vinyas Design Bot. Here is about the VLSI design flow. Let me highlight the first 3 steps in the VLSI design flow, which is requirement capture, derived specification, and logic partitioning stage. These 3 stages involve manual coding. It requires deriving specifications and coding it manually in HDL language, that is hardware description language. Following this, the other process have a standard procedure to be followed. So the main aim of Vinyas is to automate the first 3 steps. The aims include to build auto HDL designer using Python, to verify the HDL design database by simulating it using standard simulators, and to validate the design database by porting it onto FPGA. Here is the block diagram of Vinyas Design Bot. The Vinyas Design Bot takes its input as an English conversation which contains the digital design requirements, or a text document which contains the digital design requirements. This input undergoes a lot of text processing stages, and finally the design database is derived, which is the output. The design database includes the source file, the test bench folder, the simulation script, and the README file. I'm also happy to tell that we have filed a patent in the Indian Patent Office, and the title of the patent is System, Method, and Tool for Circuit Design and Implementation. Here is the functional block diagram of the Vinyas Design Bot. The first stage is the requirement capture stage. The requirement can be a conversation between 2 colleagues, or it can be a discussion in a meeting, or it can be a text document which contains the digital design requirements. The second stage is the natural language processing stage, which involves text pre-processing. The third stage is the optimization stage, which involves identifying functional dependencies between words and getting relevant information from the input document. The last stage is the behavioral modeling stage, where the optimized files till now are written in the form of Verilog code. We have demoed our design bot with 2 designs, that is the ALU and the I2C protocol. Here is the input conversation for the ALU. Let me read out one sentence which will tell how the design bot actually works. It says, the sentence goes like this: we will plan the place together and go there if it is acceptable by both of us. This conversation is basically a conversation between 2 friends who are planning to go to a trip. And the sentence says, we will plan the place together and go there if it is acceptable by both of us. So here the nouns are A and B, since they are the people who are conversing. The verb is go. So when we identify the functional dependency for this sentence, it happens to be go is equal to A, followed by logical AND operator, and then B. The logical AND operator is identified because of the keyword, because of both, that is a keyword which is used in the sentence. In this way, it identifies for each sentence and the logical equation is formed. Here is the in detailed explanation for the functional block diagram. The input processor takes the inputs. The NLP block basically converts all characters to lowercase. NLP is the natural language processing block, which converts all characters to lowercase. It imports an important NLP libraries like NLTK and TextBlock, which are used for nouns and verbs identification. It also removes duplicates in order to avoid ambiguity. The next stage is the logic extraction stage, where the functional dependencies between words are identified and necessary information is extracted, and logic mapping takes place as well. The last stage is the HDL designer stage, which is in which the files that are processed till now are written in the form of in the form of Verilog code. This will be the kind of output that gets generated. The source folder will be there, which contains the source code. The test bench folder will have the test bench file, and the run script and the README file will have the README file in it. Here are the output files for the ALU. That is, the code has been generated, the source code, test bench, run script, and README file. Here is the waveform for ALU. That's it about the ALU one. And next is about the I2C protocol. I2C protocol is basically a machine communication protocol. Let me read out one sentence from the input conversation for I2C protocol, which will basically summarize the protocol. The sentence goes like this. Generally, the devices are idle. The transfer starts only when there is data to be transmitted. Now the address to which the data needs to be sent is identified, and the data is read and written to that address. The receiver acknowledges data transfer with a signal, and data transfer stops there. Here is the detailed block diagram for I2C. The input processing module takes the input document and the intermediate query extract and generates a Q&A pair. This process is done in order to ensure that the input document is right. And after this, there's an intermediate document which is generated, which has similar processes like the NLP block and the optimization block. The last block is the HDL designer, wherein the optimized files are written in the form of codes. Here are the output files for I2C.
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am. One last minute left for your presentation.
Okay, it's almost done. Here is the source code for I2C. Here is the test bench and README file and run script that has been generated by the design bot. Here is the waveform that has been simulated on an online simulator, and the design has been verified. This design bot, the project is still in progress, and for future implementation, we thought of using CNN. This has good scope in places where coding has major importance. It can be in the field of education or in the field of industry. Thank you. Any questions?
Hello, sir.
Hello, ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I'm fine. Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Madam, you just show me your list of references.
I forgotten to add the list of references, sir.
Okay, right. Okay, not an issue, but I want just to know. I mean, I just inform you we should add the list of references. For any kind of the research paper or say kind of any contributed work. Especially survey paper or research paper is there. So research are list of references are nothing but the evidence of that work.
Okay, sir.
So that should be there, right?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Apart from that, everything is fine. Okay, good.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And hello, Mr. Soumyadip Chatterjee. If you are ready with your presentation, you can start.
Right. Please let me know when my screen is visible.
Yes, it is. It is. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, hello. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Soumyadip Chatterjee. I'm sorry, I'm going to bore you for another 10 minutes. So today I'm going to present my paper named Design and Implementation of Women Security System based on GSM and GPS technology, paper ID 237. So today in this presentation, I will be covering this following content to present my synthesis of women security system based on GSM and GPS technology. So women's safety in our society has become a major concern since the last few decades. The line graph of crime rates against women is incremental. The worst fear of this safety is the sad reality of our country. Today, women empowerment is on rise, but the hideous crime rate against them makes it considered. Technological advancements has always been a matter of pride for our country when it comes to progress. Today, there are security and surveillance systems for every possible domain required, but we haven't seen much technological advancement or commercialization to be more specific when the matrix is related to women's security concerns. So we have gone through few previous researches on this topic and came into an idea designing a system with a minimum loopholes and minimizing the false alarming rate ratio. We have tried to implement the enhanced idea of designing a customized, accurate, and robust compact system using the GSM and GPS technology of women's system, women's safety. Even during the epoch, women are feeling insecure to step out of their house because of the increasing crimes in our country, like harassment, abuse, and violence. Many women are operating in companies even in night shift. There is a sense of insecurity among the female employees. The projected device is a lot sort of a safety device just in case of emergency. This device can be fitted in the very jacket or blazer for work. It is straightforward to hold device with more features and functions. The emergency push button is held to one of the button of the blazer. The main purpose of this device is to independent the parents and police about the location of the victim. The GPS system is utilized to trace the victimized spot of the victim, and GSM module is employed to send the message to the predefined number. This module is additionally helpful for little children, senior aged individual consent. So let me explain the proposed system briefly. Arduino is used as a main microcontroller. The system is made for incident alert. The whole system is to be fitted in a jacket itself. So once the accident happens, the vibration module is triggered to assure user its activeness. With the GPS, the latitude and longitude of the particular location is obtained, which helps in discovering the precise location of the accident site, and followed by a GSM module, SIM900A, which is interfaced with the microcontroller. So that when the accident happens, the GSM module will be sending the SMS automatically to the particular number, which would be entered in the code. Accelerometer will check the shock intensity and the validating of sending the message. Also, the delay time is programmatically integrated to give the person chance to press the reset key. If the threat detection is normal, which will reduce the false alarm ratio. SOS key is also interfaced with the microcontroller to send the alert manual. So in the frontal side, the system has having these 3 switches and the charging port point. SOS and cancel button have been set closely intentionally. After pressing the SOS button for 2 seconds, it will trigger the alert. Within the 10-second message will be sent. But if the user pressed it by mistake, or maybe she misjudged the situation, in order to save from false alert, the cancel button have been set closely to SOS button. This project ensures concerning the protection for women, which contains the Arduino controller and sensor, a vibrator motor, accelerometer, a GSM, and GPS are used in this project. When the women are in threat, the devices senses the movement through accelerometer. When the sensor crosses the pink limit of the device gets activated and traces the situation of the victim utilizing the GPS module inside the system. By using GSM module, the device traces out the victim's location, and an alert is sent to the registered contact number with the location coordinates, and it's mandatory to set or insert a fully activated SIM card in the GSM module. There will be 2 buttons, one is for sending the SOS to the configured, and one is for cancelling it. 2 switches will be too small, but finger reach. Whole system is small as a woman purse. So after pressing the SOS switch for after 2 seconds, an emergency alert save me message will be delivered to the configured receiver within 20 seconds. There is a vibration module which will keep on vibrating for 20 seconds while sending the SMS, so that user remain aware of the system functionality. SOS message will be sent along with its longitude latitude. Link will be there in system which will be delivered to the which will be vibrating for 20 seconds, so aware of the system functionality. SOS message will be sent along with the longitude and latitude. Link will be there in the SMS, which will directly open into Google Maps. Now an accelerometer is being implemented so that any type of abnormal gesture, back fall or back push, fall over, it can detect the response automatically within the same delay. With this feature, if a woman is attacked from behind or lose her grip from the purse, then also the system will be useful. So pressing SOS button is not mandatory. Our design am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So the system is not only portable but also rechargeable. One-time recharge and system will be functional for next 4 to 6 hours. External power supply is also present. So the resultant discussion, the ultimate output of the system will only be in the mobile as per the setting made by the user. The preset setting is the emergency contact to set what the SMS will be sent. In the SMS, a customized message will be there, which presently said emergency service required, save me, followed by the longitude and latitude of the victim spot with a link which is integrated with the Google Map. So when the person gets the SMS, he and she can know the location of the victim in an instantly. The proposed system will handle critical issues related to women's safety in the future and will help to solve them with technical advanced equipped concept. This enhanced design will defeat the fear that stalks every woman in the society regarding our safety and security. Our motive is to design and build a gadget which is compact and portable that will advantageous to personal security system or emergency response system, which will be useful for anyone who is a victim to the crime. The proposed system is made in a cost-effective and efficient manner, which can store the information of the member in the particular locality and provide the immediate alert in case of crime. For future enhancement, we are thinking for few changes listed, increasing the storage ability to hold a greater number of contacts to send the alert during the emergency time. Corresponding to SMS, a place demo call to the receiver to alert him more profoundly, which can be done with another AT command. Upgrading to biometrical trigger or a voice activated system, and I think I can upgrade to a more miniature system. So sir, this is the references list as you asked for, and that's it from my side.
Hello.
Yes sir.
Sir, just to go to back to last slide.
Reference.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes sir.
So may I know why all references are from Indian authors?
Sorry sir, can you repeat now?
Hello.
Yes sir.
Why all references are from Indian authors?
Oh well sir, there is nothing, just like I have searched and
It means,
whatever.
see, the work you are doing, that is nothing but kind of the international work, right? So
Yes sir.
we should also refer the other references part of, outside of the our country. Right?
Yes
That
sir,
is
but
my first comments. And the second one, only these three and five, only five references are there.
oh well sir, that's also no fixed reason. That's all I have got. Actually, sir, this is mainly my genuine idea, but was built last year. So within this few year, I found that there are a few system available, but nothing commercial yet. And in every system, something were missing. And even if you like, then I can mention one of it,
Okay,
like
okay,
the
fine, take it.
very
Now,
most, like
just
biggest
go to
loophole one.
the title slide,
Sir,
title slide, first slide.
yeah, yeah.
See, this is the kind of the things you design or you implemented in a women security, right? That is based on the GDS and also GPS. So such kind of the things which already exist. Lots many authors or lots many developers already developed this thing, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
what we need to do at this stage, we have to also compare to the other works
Yes, sir.
and we have to do the analysis, the survey, right?
Yes, sir.
And find out the features which are not existing in the other work.
Yes, sir. So, sir, I have already did few of them. So, if you
Yeah,
want,
you that way. That's why I asked you, just show me the list of references. Or by reading, referring only five references is not sufficient.
oh yeah, yes, sir, yes, yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. And our next presentation is from us, and the paper title is a web-based application for detection and report generation using DJNGO. Hello, Ms. Priyanka.
Hello, good morning, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Is my screen visible, ma'am?
Yes.
So, one moment. Yes. Good morning to one more presenter. So I'm S. Priyanka from ECE Department of RMK College of Engineering and Technology. And I will be now presenting our paper titled A Web-Based Application for Data Collection and Report Generation using Django. These are the table of contents that I'll be explaining in my presentation. So to start off with, what is data? Data is nothing but a collection of information which is stored and analyzed to make, which empowers you in making informed decisions. So it is necessary to have a very effective data collection and data handling methods. So our applicative solution will be very helpful in managing data efficiently. So the three main objectives of our application is to dynamically update the database and to reduce the effort and time spent on data collection, to collect, store, analyze data, and also to interpret and display required information from large databases to automate the process of customized report generation. So this concept is implemented as a web application with accessibility to users 24/7. And this is mainly focused on reducing the load on the administrator side in constantly updating and maintaining the databases. So database software used is Microsoft MySQL, which is connected to the Python-based open source framework Django. And we've used HTML and CSS for designing the front end. The scripting language used for interactivity is JavaScript. So the basic workflow of our application is shown here. If the user is already registered, he can directly sign in. If not, he is provided with a link to register himself. On completion of the verification and authentication process, he will be directed to his home page along with three tabs, which are the About, Publications, and Update. So this app is specifically designed based on the needs of our college to maintain the journal publications made by the professors and students of our college. But this concept is versatile and can be deployed in similar situations. The login process is very simple, where the user will have to enter his registered email ID and password. We have also provided the convenience of in case the user forgets the password, we have provided the convenience of email-based password retrieval system. And if he is a new user, we have provided a link to register himself. So this is the registration form, which collects the details of the user, such as his first name, last name, department, email address, staff ID, and password. The staff ID being unique helps in avoiding duplicate registrations. On successful verification and authentication process, the user will be directed to his home page, which gives a short profile of the logged in user. And the user is also provided with a button to change his current password on the home page. The below is a table which shows the publications which is made by the current user. The user is also provided with the edit and delete options. If the user makes any changes in his publications, which is being displayed in the home page, the changes made will also be reflected on the database. The next page is the About page, which gives a short information and details about the organization and the administrators. The image on your right shows a short profile of Dr. Arun C., Associate Professor of EC Department in our college. And he is a key person behind the development of this application, and he will be managing the same. So as I said, there are three main goals of our applications, which is data collection, data filtration, and report generation. The update page is responsible for the data collection part. The update page consists of an update form, and this form asks for the details such as the year of publication, document title, digital object identifier, authors, volume, issue, month, index, and department. So after filling in all the details, the user will have to click on the upload button. The document title and the digital object identifier being unique will help us in avoiding duplicacy. On clicking the upload button, the form validation process takes place, during which if the record is found to be already existing, the user will be alerted with a pop-up message. The next is the publications page. This page is used to display the entire count of publications made, and we have provided each table, one table for each department, which shows the number of publications made year-wise. Scrolling down the publications page, we find the view publication button at the bottom. So this will lead you to the report generation page. The user can generate advanced reports with intelligent filters provided. So we are provided with 5 filtering options, which will narrow down your search and will help you in fetching your data more precisely and quickly. The 5 filtering options provided are the department, source, academic year, calendar year, and authors. Entering in the, for example, if I need to create a report of the publications made by the ECE department in Scopus in the academic year 2017 to 18. The user will have to enter in the details, and on clicking the go button, here you can see the data is being filtered, and the records which match the user's condition are being displayed. If there are no records matching the user's condition, the same will be displayed. So let's see how this works. Since we are provided
Sorry to
with,
interrupt, ma'am.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt. 1 last minute left for your presentation.
yeah, I finished. Since we are provided with 5 filtering options, there are different SQL queries based on the combinations of the filtering options which is to be given by the user. When the processor finds which is similar to the user given filtering options, the program executes a predefined SQL query using the raw function of Python. These SQL queries are dynamic since the variables are assigned with values based on the user's criteria. The dynamic SQL queries makes it reusable and also makes the code efficient and simple. Once the SQL queries are executed on the database, the filtered data is being returned back to the processor, and the retrieved data will be displayed on the user interface. A final product of our application is a report. So once the filtered data is displayed, the user is provided with 2 options, such as download PDF and export Excel. So he can download his report as in PDF format, which will be useful in producing hard copies and be easier for sharing and also save space. And the next option available is to export your report in spreadsheet format. So I've included the images of the report in PDF format and Excel format. So the database architecture is we have 2 tables. The one table consists of the user profile data, such as his first name, last name, his registered email ID, and his personal information, along with the password in hashed format. So this table will be used in the authentication process. And the second table consists of the actual data which is being updated by the user, and the predefined SQL queries are being executed on this second table, which consists of the client data. So I pointed out 4 main advantages of this application. Is that the main advantage is that it's interoperability. It can be customized to work with any kind of database with very minute changes. It is versatile and can be used in various sectors like government and private institutions. The size of the database will not cause a major effect on this application. For large databases with necessary hardware, the proposed system will function without any errors. The application is user-friendly and does not require any technical knowledge in handling the website. The application is intelligent enough in identifying the updation of pre-existing data to avoid duplicacy and hence save space. So that's it. Thank you for your patience listening.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Just go to the title slide.
Okay.
Ma'am, such it's
it's your kind of the applications, that is web-based applications. It's
Yes.
collecting the data and report, I mean, the collection of the data and generating the reports, right?
Yes, sir.
And that will be normally useful in our educational communities.
Yes, so educational, even industries where
Right.
where large data needs to be managed.
Right. So is such kind of the existing things already there?
Sir, this it is very useful in when data retrieval part. So we have provided many filtering options which narrows down your search.
So
So it
can
will be
you
very
tell me,
useful in data
is
retrieval
it,
process.
yeah, is it kind of the intelligent or a smart web-based applications? For example, as a being a faculty, if I provide the my user, I mean not, but my records, right? So will it be able to calculate the my API score?
So can you repeat the question?
See, this kind of the application that is normally used in a faculty communities, right?
Yes, sir.
So being a faculty, if I upload the my some certificates, right?
Okay.
Research or say publications. So will it be able to calculate the API?
So as of now, we have not included
Right.
that opportunity, sir, but it is possible to add it, sir.
So that in what way it will be calculated? It will be calculated, just by uploading a single document, right? I do not need to add additional, or I do not type the other supporting informations, right? So
Sir, it will
ultimately, goal
ask.
is what you just add the kind of AI things in your existing things. I mean, in your developed applications, so that will be more intelligent.
Okay, sir.
है ना?
Sure, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And our next presentation is from Mr. Mayank Phadke, and the paper title is Designing an Algorithm to Support Optimized Crop Selection by Farmers.
Can I start presenting?
Yes,
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 sir.
please.
Thank you. Can you please let me know if the screen is visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, it is.
Oh. I'm sorry, please give me.
Hi, are you facing any issue?
Yeah, just a minute. I'll try to sort.
Now, are you ready?
Just a minute. No, I'm not.
If it is time taking, then we can move to the next presenter.
Okay, that will be fine.
Till then, please be ready with your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Our next presentation is from Ms. Deepti.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Is role of ICT in emerging towns and cities. Yes, Deepti.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Is my screen visible, ma'am? Hello, ma'am. Is my screen visible?
Ma'am, your screen is visible. You just speak loudly.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So a warm good morning to one and all. So myself, Deepti, I'm an architect and an urban and regional planner. So currently I'm pursuing my PhD in architecture and planning. So, and I work as an assistant professor at Trichy. So this paper is all about role of ICT in emerging towns and cities. So this paper is going to focus on its role in various part of sectors like agriculture, city planning, infrastructure planning, etc., which is totally focused on planning as one of the major agenda. So moving on, so the presentation has been sequenced like the background of the ICT study, the role of ICT studies in cities and towns. This forms the introduction part, like how ICT has taken a wider picture in many sectors of the city and town.
So that would be the background of the study, followed with the case studies. So case study is all about the implementation of ICT tools in international and national context. So it explains about the different sectors. As I told you, the sectors of cities and towns are divided into urban public services and government, urban administration, public health and safety, environment and energy, and urban infrastructure. That accounts for international context as well as the national context. So here the national context talks about India. And finally, we have come up with the discussion and conclusion. This is a kind of a literature part to do with. So yes, so this is the overall picture about the presentation. Moving on. So as we all know that many cities and towns in India is being urbanized, and many structures in structure of the city, the spatial form of the city has become complex. So when you divide the cities and towns into different sectors, it falls into the aspects of social services, education, and healthcare. And there is a difficulty in order to have a systematic way of development, the future forecast, and there is many problems associated with the cities and towns. So because of ICT, the future forecast, or what is the problem they are currently facing, be it a spatial way of aspect, or be it the area extent, or be it any related problem, can easily be monitored and investigated. So ICT tools would be explained in the upcoming slide based on the case studies witnessed in international and national context. As per NIUA, we find that we have many number of opportunity in urban governance, infrastructure management, and we can easily track down the efficient use of resources, and we can even mitigate the climate changes also. So it's kind of like mapping which has to do about it. So moving on, I just have to tell you about the role of ICT in towns and city, which is going to be categorized on different sectors, how ICT has been used. In real estate and building, industrial and manufacturing sectors, utilities where which focuses on electricity, gas, or water supply and solid waste management. ICT is even used in air management and wastewater management and so on. So when you come to this section of the image, it is even used for surveillance for the city. It is used for healthcare, agriculture, education, transportation, connectivity, and spatial rural planning and of city as well as region. This is the overall picture how ICT has uh, marked a major role in cities and towns. So moving on, these are few uh, uh, these are few literature part how ICT has been used in real estate and building. We find that real estate and building is one of the major sector which affects the community within a city, because it requires a network of public participation, because they are the people who actually forecast the future building perception in a longer run. So with that being said, they are actually they have considered the pockets of settlement or the pockets of land which has a future development. All these pros and cons can be detailed out in the real estate and the building sectors. When you talk about industries and manufacturers, industries is always aligned with the operations efficiency, how far the industries is going to progress over the period of time. So have that considered into picture. So based on many softwares, you can work on this in order to track down the efficiency of the industries, and how each and every tools or each and every machineries within the industries can function, how many production is being generated from the industries, etc. They talk about utilities. Utilities plays a major role, because when you narrow down to the utilities within the city, You have water supply, solid waste management, electricity, which should be maintained and which should have a proper monitoring from the household level to the city level and even the regional level. So ICT has made a major mark in these utilities also. And going on to the waste management, yes, in cities like Delhi, Bangalore, or Chennai, the major metropolitan city, we know how many amount of waste disposal is being generated from each household, industries, and many
Hi,
sectors.
sorry to interrupt you. One
Yes,
last
ma'am.
minute left for presentation.
Yeah,
Sorry
okay,
to
ma'am.
interrupt.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So waste management is also one of the technique where ICT has been carried forward, and about safety and security because of many crime rates which has been found in many cities, be it in London or be it in Delhi or be it in Bangalore. You have major CCTV cameras put forth and which is being monitored by the centers. That has also been a part of ICT interventions. Yes, moving on, these are also few of the sectors like agriculture, mobility, education, and city planning, where ICT, the app has been developed. When you talk about mobility, an app has been developed in London, where the motorists or the people using the transport mode like cars, everything has been monitored. So these are kind of the examples to do about. So have it being said, let me go to the international context where ICT has been used spatially. So I have been divided into 5 sectors. The first is the public service and the government. One important aspect you find out in this paper is like the importance of choosing an urban parameter, how to quantify it, and how can you bring out the intervention based on urban parameters is one of the important aspect you have to consider when you look into the ICT based intervention. So here it talks about the street lighting, drainage. The data is about all this has to be collected, and the mapping technique by GIS or GPS technique has been formed in order to find how far the services within a city is being monitored and administrated. And there is also another project, Fix My Street app, which was developed in London in 2018. It talks about non-motorized transit because London, they are actually focusing on NMT and walkability city concept, and people are moving into cycle and pedestrian. So this is a wonderful app people are using, and they found it more workable. So when you talk about the urban administration point of view, a project which has been carried forward in Peru.
Ma'am, you already have exceeded the time limit, so I request you to conclude, please.
Yes, yes. So these are the intervention which was found in international context. Let me give you the glimpse about the national context. So there are projects which has been found in Jabalpur, Raipur, where ICT intervention has been found in solid waste management, water supply management, and even understanding the city. There is one beautiful project by one Bhuvaneshwar, where the individual citizens within the cities are able to know more about their city and their surrounding and their built environment, be it tourist site or be it the bus stop or be it the nearby services and amenities. And there is also project from Bhopal, which talks about the NMT transit, and there is also an e-toilet kind of intervention, which has been concentrated in Sholapur. And so this is also a kind of an outcome out of this ICT. Yes. So finally, I would conclude that this concept of ICT has started with the smart cities information system, and it has been widely used by planners, developers, social analysts for the well-being of the city and in order to improve the quality of life. So finally, I would conclude that in India, we are in a longer run to have a network of technology based on ICT. So, but we started this approach in the year 2011 when JNNURM scheme was introduced, and slowly by Modi government, we started with this smart cities project, and it has been carried forward in many cities like across the across India, around 300, and many interventions are being seen. So one future direction for this paper is like the low-cost ICT must be implemented in the cities and towns so that we have easy way of deliverable to the citizens and yeah, the people of India. So we have many challenges to face across in sort of operational efficiency, capacity development, the transparency, and many such things. And India is marching towards many mapping systems through this Amrut scheme. So India is also marching towards finding the mitigation measures for climate change, the spread of diseases as we witness in this COVID pandemic time. And they are also working on this risk mapping and how to naturally use the available resources, etc. So we need a lot of remote sensing and developing database like dashboards or portals in order to get to know about what is happening in and around these cities. So thank you. And so I would like to thank you, my co-authors, Dr. Shanti Priya ma'am and Dr. Radhakrishnan sir. So yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, madam. Thank you. No
Yeah.
question.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Ready where you were left off, please start.
Hello.
Hi.
Is the screen visible now? Is the presentation visible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Please go ahead and complete within the given time, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'll be continuing from where I left off. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. India's agricultural sector has been plagued by low productivity, declining farm sizes, dependence on uncertain weather conditions, and a lot of issues. However, increasing globalization and commercialization have led to diversification in production, consumption, and have provided access to modern farming technologies, seed varieties, as well as have contributed to the development of markets for over 350 agricultural commodities. New varieties have developed, all of which have varied yields and different levels of resistance to specific pests, diseases, and weather events. These developments present farmers with the opportunity to increase farm productivity and substantially grow their incomes. However, adequately leveraging these technologies requires a robust information transfer mechanism. Hello?
Second.
With the growth in the use of mobile devices and the internet, these mobile applications can be employed very cost effectively.
Hello. Yes, please continue.
Yeah. So mobile applications can be employed very cost effectively to help farmers easily access and act upon this information. As the first step of designing this algorithm, we study the various factors that affect the crop selection process. We divide these factors into 5 broad categories, namely natural resources, inputs and technologies, financial factors, policy factors, and household factors. We delve into much greater detail about these factors in the paper and study what sub-factors comprise these broad factors, how they affect the selection, and the indicators that we use to incorporate these factors into the decision-making process. While there are certain existing crop selection algorithms in the market, many of which apply AI and ML technologies like decision trees, convolutional neural networks, long-term short memory, etc., to name a few, and these have definitely achieved promising results. These are usually at a farm level with a small sample size and are conducted as purely an academic exercise at a small scale. However, in India, farm level data is largely unavailable at high accuracy and granularity. And as a result, it is important to have a context-specific algorithm for crop selection that has the capacity to work independent of farm level data. Our algorithm is classified into 4 modules. First, the user profile generation, then the natural resources module, followed by the agricultural inputs and technologies module, and then the agricultural finances module. The user profile module develops a user profile based on user data and strengthens it using our own extensive data sets. The natural resources module provides scores based on the fitment of crop to the soil and weather conditions, determines soil nutrient requirements, and generates a list of feasible crops. The agricultural inputs and technologies module determines the total labor requirements, human, animal, and mechanical, and computes the cost of equipment, agricultural inputs, fertilizer, and pesticide requirements. Agricultural finances module determines the total input costs, transportation costs, credit costs, and most importantly, calculates the revenue and income for all feasible crops, providing final scores for all of the feasible crops that have been determined in the natural resources module. Based on all of these modules, the final recommendations for each farmer are determined. These flowcharts indicate the logic behind all of the modules, and each of these are further elaborated in the paper. I will not go into significant detail here, but in case anyone has any queries regarding any specific modules, please feel free to ask. So the natural resources module, all of the databases that are utilized and all of the individual profiles and the user data that is required is all mentioned in all of the modules. This is the agricultural inputs and technologies module. This is the agricultural finances module, and this module provides the final income and the revenue. This algorithm represents the first step in such a study, and as such, it has certain limitations. Policy factors and household factors have not been integrated into the decision-making process, and integrating these will enhance and personalize the accuracy of the recommendations that are provided. Target yields that have been utilized in this module are based on ICAR models, and unfortunately, some of these are slightly outdated. Using user-generated data fed into a CNN network linked with LTSM can help predict yields accurately, and this will further enhance recommendations significantly. However, this will be based on primary data collected from users. With regular soil tests which are being conducted by the governments, NGOs, and private firms, the accuracy and availability of quality data will increase, and recommendations will become significantly more accurate. In conclusion, the Indian agricultural sector, which has faced stagnating productivity and diminishing profit margins, has the capacity to significantly increase their incomes through careful, knowledge-based selection of crops and varieties. This mobile application can help farmers improve farm yields and agricultural income by selecting an optimal crop based on a variety of factors. The design of the crop selection algorithm and its 3 decision modules, the natural resources module, agricultural inputs and technologies module, and the agri finances module have all been discussed. This application can be used extensively by agricultural extension services, NGOs, farmer producer organizations, and individual farmers to help determine the profit maximizing crop according to their soil, climate, and numerous other factors. Thank you.
Mayank,
Yes, sir.
just go to back and open your flowchart.
Yes, just a minute.
See, here I have a little bit correction. Go back.
Yes.
Next. Yeah, next. High in this slide.
Yes,
So
sir.
just see, these are the just see the shape of diamond.
Yes.
They are connectors or say they are the conditioners.
Yes.
Yeah. So just put it in terms of conditions, and if yes, then what happens? I mean, the flow will be goes in what direction, and if no, then the flow will be goes in a lower direction.
Okay, sir. Understood.
We provide the corrections. I mean, clarity of your diagram.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayank. And our
Thank
next
you.
presentation is from Ms. Mona Tatari, and the paper title is Review of Smart Building Management System. Hello, Ms. Mona.
Hello.
Hi, please go ahead. No, and your voice is not properly audible. Now it is visible.
Yeah. Can I start?
Yes, please.
Hello, good morning. I'm Mona Tatri from Jamia Hamdar.
Hi, Mona. I guess your voice is a bit low. Can you please speak louder so it will be audible to everyone?
Okay. Web title Review of Smart Building Management System contains introduction,
literature review, challenges and solutions, conclusion and reference. First, talk about buildings. The buildings are the largest consumer of energy and responsible for 3/4 of all urban greenhouse gas emission here.
Hello, ma'am. Your voice is still the same.
The buildings are the largest. Is okay? Here, okay.
Yes, better.
The buildings are the largest consumer of energy and responsible for 3/4 of all urban greenhouse gas emission. Hence, the need to reduce energy consumed in building and make them green, smart, and sustainable energy. The primary goal of energy management in buildings is to reduce the used energy and electricity bill with increasing comfort and safety of passengers. Second, the literature review. Here we present the related papers and the techniques they use. In this table, we summarize these techniques with respect to components of the smart city and the review by those papers. Some authors proposed in shopping mall an intelligent building energy management system that uses open communication protocol, and others presented a methodology for integrating smart building in a smart city platform and focus on the use of artificial intelligence techniques. Some implemented a smart building management system in Orbia University Camp based on private clouds, and others discussed building and home automation network based on Zigbee technology with a focus on appliance and lighting. Some proposed in home building smart energy management system using renewable energy and Zigbee technology. In AIR University Takans, they proposed a smart microgrid with information and communication technology, IoT and big data approach. They proposed to use the IoT technology to smartly control and energy use of device in office and home buildings. And some others in Nigeria proposed the building management system with IoT and wireless communication technology in commercial buildings. Other design and implemented in commercial and residential building artificial intelligence based smart building automation controller based on fuzzy logic. Other papers proposed a building management system based on artificial intelligence tools, and some proposed interpretable artificial intelligence for smart infrastructure. Other presented information and communication technologies in smart building to control and automation of all systems in them. Some presented standard protocols for smart lighting and smart heating, ventilation, air conditioning. And other proposed Internet of Energy is an application of Internet of Things, and some talk about using Internet of Things technology. Some papers suggested models or presented algorithms. Here, some authors proposed ASM framework for designing and simulating energy-aware smart spaces. And other created a model consists of 5 smart building and perform simulation using analytics. Other authors presented an integrated component model that simulates an intelligent energy management system. Some others proposed a model based on modern information and communication technology, and others proposed a thermodynamic model that uses a human body heat balance equation using MATLAB simulating for the used paper. And other papers have designed and simulated topology system that helps save energy in smart building and suggest simulation using Quantic operating system. Now talk about challenges and the solutions. Smart buildings face some challenges and
Sorry to interrupt. One last minute left for presentations. I request you to conclude.
okay. Smart building face some challenges that hinder their adoption and implementation. First, one of the challenges that was the consumed energy by using traditional building management system, which use
multiple protocols. So the proposed intelligent system for reducing consume energy. In other paper, the challenge was how to evolution smart building concept with implement plans in a smart city. So they proposed a smart building in a smart city. In Nigeria, the challenge was the limited application of building management system. So they proposed equality economic advantages of utilizing the building management system. Other challenges were the equipment and technical tools, application and financial limitation. So they proposed implementing a management system that control and test the proposed need. Also, there were privacy issues, so they proposed a digital rights management system, and other challenges were related to sustainability solution and the proposed advanced artificial intelligence system. In Brazil, there were economic, political, social, and technical barriers for the adopting a smart building, so they proposed the effective solution and technology that can be utilized in a smart building. And last, the conclusion, we conduct in here an extended literature review to identify all technology abroad that could be applied in smart building. And this research aims to implement future management system which control and ensure that smart building and its achieving the energy efficiency, the sustainable and green energy of the current building will maintain safety and security of the building. And reference and
Hello. I'm okay, ma'am. I don't have any question.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mona. And our next presentation is from Mr. A. Jagdish, and the paper title is A Smart Device for Power Theft Detection.
Hello, is my PPT visible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, one and all. This is Jagadish from Amrita School of Engineering, Bengaluru, and my research work is regarding a smart device for power theft identification. So basically, we all know that the electricity is a main key factor for anything to build up any technological advancements, and also it results in a huge economical growth for a country. But due to the fact that various power thefts happening in various places creates a huge revenue loss as well as a power shortage. And coming to the latest advancements, coming in latest technological advancements to eradicate this power theft problem are the AMI. One is AMI, that is the Advanced Metering Index, and the smart meters that are coming to eradicate this problem. Basically, before going into the identification of power theft, I would like to brief about some common methods while doing the power theft. One is this shorting of the phase line. That is the meter phase line, incoming phase line will be shorted so that the meter will not read any readings. And another method is the neutral line disconnection, cutting down the neutral line so that the meter won't read the perfect readings. And then whole meter bypassing. That is the meter hole, the incoming terminals for both the meter will be bypassed such that the meter won't read the connected load. And then the last method is the tampering, where in the tampering case, a hook is used so that an illegal load is connected at the overhead lines, and the illegal load is used without recording the units. So these are the common power thefts happening in some of the places. So the main work focuses in this paper is to completely identify the power theft. The main problem actually is to first identify the power theft at a particular location, and the technique used here is the observometer technique in this work. And the main objectives of this paper is to implement a device that identifies the power theft detection. So and the main objectives are to first detect the power theft and to pass this information to a concerned person in charge without having a GSM module and sending an alert message using the IoT technology. So, and then to control the illegal load operation during the tampering power theft by cutting off the supply. This is the basic block diagram of this work goes with the as I mentioned, the technique used here is the observer meter technique, where the 2 meters will be present. One is a house meter, that is a normal meter as a real as we are using it right now, the normal household meter that is present in our houses or the apartments, the house meter present in the house, and the one of the observer meter that is present at the incoming line coming to the house, that is either the pole or the distribution transformer. This is the basic digital meter loop model. And then the overall block diagram goes with the observer meter and then the household meter. Both the meter readings are being sent to the cloud, and they are analyzed. And if there is any slight variation in those readings, it will be detected that there is a illegal load connected at the overhead line, and then sends the alert message. So this is the basic block diagram, and then comes to the methodology. As this is done in the Proteus software, this is being divided and broken down into 2 sections. One is to first design our own digital energy meter using an Arduino and giving the loads as the lamp load and the resistor loads. And then after this identification of power theft using the observer meter technique, after designing the digital energy meter, and then sending this value, the meter readings to the ThinkSpeak platform, that is the cloud which is acting as a cloud here, and analyzing the values, both the observer meter and the household values, and then sending the alert message if there is any variation. So the basic methodology goes, and then the calculations and the comparisons for design. Basically, for designing a digital energy meter, a current sensor is used to first calculate the load current. Here, the current sensor basically gives us the output in terms of the voltage, and this voltage will be in an analog value. So this analog value will be converted into digital value using the ADC module that is present inside the controller. That the controller used here is Arduino. And then the converted digital value will be scaled down such that using a scaling factor given by the data sheet in the data sheet of the current sensor, and the final current will be calculated. The current calculated will be at each instant of time, because we are using the AC current, the alternating value. So the each instance of current will be calculated, and then the while looping it in using an algorithm, and we'll be calculating the RMS current from the each instance of current. So this RMS current will be called as a load current that is turned on in a particular house. Using these current values, we'll be calculating the respective power, and then the units will be calculated. We have taken a case scenario for a particular load, that is a 3 lamps and 1 motor load that is turned on. It is recorded that the current as the 1.7 amps, and the respective RMS power as the following power, and then the units consumed when it is turned on for 3 minutes. For the case 2 we studied. So the units consumed is 0.02.
Sorry to interrupt. 1 last minute left for presentation.
Okay. And then coming to the a radial distribution network has been formed in order to mimic the real case scenario for detecting the power theft. This is the overview of the system, and then this is the digital meter that I have explained. It is reading the values as I explained when the particular load is connected at each instant of time, and this is the power theft detection point where there is a slight difference between the units consumed. This is a 0.01 and this is a 0.0 because the illegal load is connected near the overhead line. And these are various case scenarios for apartment models, and whereas the individual house models, the data run. And then for communication, we are using a ThinkSpeak platform for communicating the for sending the meter readings to the cloud, so that it can analyze whether there is any variation in the meter readings. These are the serial monitor output shown as the when there is power theft and when there is no power theft. So we can see these readings here, and then the an interface, that is an IFTTT interface, that is used to basically send the alert message directly to the concerned line man without using any GSM module. This was the interface, and then hence I conclude that the power theft identification and the information passing and cutting down the power supply is being done using the Proteus software. Thank you.
Sir, just go to the list of references if it is available.
Which slide, sir?
No, list of references. Reference list. Okay. I think in your PPT there is no list of reference.
Yeah. I forgot to add it.
Okay, fine. Okay. Otherwise, the rest of things are good, right?
Yeah.
But once you are sending the alert message,
Yes, sir.
to where the message will be sent?
The location, and then the message will be sent to the concerned line man particular to that location. Like for a case, if we want, if a power theft is happening in particular location, there will be concerned in charge person to that location.
Okay. So
So
it's a thing
to that concerned person.
Right, to the concerned person. Agree.
Yeah.
But it's a thing of, it's a kind of the IoT based application.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes,
so
sir.
In what way you will be send the SMS? You will send the SMS or you just simply send a kind of the alert in your application?
We will send the SMS.
Okay.
We'll send the SMS using the node module which connects to the
That's
Wi-Fi.
okay. Through the third party gateway, you can implement it, right? But
Yes.
what I would like to suggest you, once you are using the IoT, so there are one of the popular protocol for IoT, that is MQTT protocol is there.
Yes, sir.
So that can be also MQTT protocol can be also integrated in your application. So we do not need SMS.
Yes, sir. Got it.
And it will be immediately, it's a real type of applications, protocols that will be immediately reflect in your screens in terms of notification.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Otherwise, in SMS, what happen? The scenario. Sometime there are two types of the message, short message text service are there, right? Alert and notifications, right?
Yes,
in notifications, what we need a real time application.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Think about that.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your excellent presentations. And also all the authors, all the presenters would be getting their digital certificates via email within 2 working days. And papers have already been forwarded to the Springer. So publication will be live within 5 to 6 months. So kindly cooperate with the team ICT 4SD 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation. Also, a token of appreciation to the chair of this session. Thank you so much, sir, for chairing the session.
Thank you, ma'am.
So before leaving, I would like to request you all to on the camera so I can have a quick snapshot for our virtual conference. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe. Take care.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Goodbye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nilam, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
You just WhatsApp me the last snap.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Do. Yeah. Thank you.